teams from the best of Australia's car building and car tuning workshops to see who can build the toughest street monster. Our teams will go head to head in a final fuel-burning, rubber-shredding competition. In this episode, Valley Grunt finally get the 55 to Chris O'Shea. The mighty XR6 at Autotech gets a high-tech transplant. And Brendan and Sarah from HBW get an important road safety lesson from the SES. But first, Rob Vickery from the Horsepower Factory digs up last series SRT Jeep and reviews the modifications that turned it into a savage beast.
Okay, what we have here is our HBF SRT project. It's based off an MY15 SRT8 Jeep. Standard, this car has a 6.4 litre engine in it, making 344 kilowatts and 624 newton metres of torque. The Trackhawk, it has 522 kilowatts and 868 newton metres. This baby will go standard in stock form, 0 to 100 in about 4.9 seconds. Trackhawk smashes it in 3.7 seconds. This car has an 8-speed transmission, so does the Trackhawk, but the Trackhawk admittedly does have a lot of strengthening components, but what we wanted to do is see if we could do it on a bit of a budget using the driveline in this car to achieve the same sort of performance figures reliably. Clearly we needed to put a supercharger on it because we needed to get some boost in it to make that sort of power, which obviously the Trackhawk runs a supercharger. One of the first things we knew we had to do was put a billet, conrod and piston into it, which obviously meant pulling the engine out and rebuilding it. We put ARP head studs in it, ARP main studs. We didn't put a camshaft in it. This car already has variable cam timing. It gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you smooth idle and still good wide power and torque range. The other thing that we did while the engine was apart, our good friend at Higgins Race Heads, CNC ported the heads for us. Now, we have a chassis dyno, so there's a lot of debate over what the engine power would be, but I can tell you that this car made pretty much 400 kilowatts at all four wheels, so you can work it out on the drivetrain loss you want, but it's plenty of power. And that certainly equated to a good track time. 11.7 was our best at 118 mile an hour. I definitely believe the car's got more in it. But even at that, we achieved our target, which was basically to run those similar sort of times to the Trackhawk. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the power, obviously the engine, the supercharger. We needed to do some things obviously to support that power. One of them was we needed to change the exhaust. Up front we've got 1 7/8 inch primaries, 4-into-1 headers, into a 200 cell high flow cat, going into a dual 3-inch exhaust that we actually developed ourselves. When I started fitting exhausts to these cars, I wasn't happy with a lot of the notes, the cabin noise, so we went about working with a local manufacturer to develop our own system, and this system's a little bit different. It's quad tip. We fitted a different rear apron to allow for that, which, it's got carbon tips, pretty cool. Car sounds fantastic, no cabin drone, very, very happy with the end result. The kit we fitted to this car is the Yellowterra Whipple 2.9 litre kit. Comes complete with everything, injectors, fuel system, comes with an air intake, and the larger capacity supercharger definitely works well with the larger capacity engine, being that it's a 6.4 litre. We wanted to improve the handling. So first thing we did is we put some lowered springs in it. So we went to an E-back spring, which lowers at about 25 mil at the front and about 35 at the rear. The standard, these things have got a 20-inch wheel with a run-flat tyre. We went to a conventional radial tyre on a 22-inch rim. Now, you'd think that the ride would be harsher on a 22-inch rim than a 20-inch rim, but in actual fact, going to a conventional radial, the ride actually improved. And so the combination of the E-back springs and the 22-inch rims, the car actually rides beautiful. We've made the car handle better, but we need to make it brake better. So what we went about doing is fitting some DBA 5000 series rotors to the front with Project Mu pads, and then to the rear we fitted a 4000 series rotor with a Project Mu pad. Now, straight away I felt a massive difference in the brake pedal. The Project Mu pads are really good. They're not squealy, not too much dust, but they give you a really good pedal feel, and they're heat resistant, so they really maintain that pedal feel. Look, overall, what we wanted to do is create a car that looked a little bit different. Obviously, it's a promotional vehicle for us. So we went with a two-tone wrap. I sort of like the idea of a bit of old school. Hemi has that sort of feel about it. So we've gone the two-tone. It's got a bronze highlight through here to sort of match the wheels. The wheels are actually bronze. The other thing we did is we fitted a front lip spoiler just to give it a little bit more aggression, and I'm really happy. I think the car stands out on the road. It's not too over the top, but it just looks tough and has a lot of street appeal, which is what we're looking for. I think it's like the family man supercar, let's call it, and I think from a package point of view, just could not be happier with what we've ended up with here. I would certainly keep your eye on Facebook and our website for updates as we do more and more upgrades to this car and other cars. And we've got quite a few in our stable now that are way more crazy than this, so make sure you check us out, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the track.
Next up, Shane and Ernie finally transport War Squaw to the trimmer.
Yeah, so I've got the frames back from being sandblasted and powder coated, and they're basically like brand new. The sandblasting really gets into the metal and takes away all the contaminants, all the rust, old paint or anything else that might be on there. And you've got a nice sound coating that the moisture can't get into, and there'll be no more deterioration of the frames. The first process now is to insulate the foam from the springs so that when you're sitting on it, it doesn't get cut through and worn out prematurely. It also makes it feel more comfortable, and it helps the springs work together as a unit. Next step is to start the padding, which we build up in a couple of layers. I've got to cover this in glue and then cover the foam in glue as well, then install the first layer. I've just marked out a bit of a template here, just to get my sizing and proportion right. And then I've used those measurements and I've plotted out along each of the sides and the top and bottom of the piece of vinyl. Those measurements are now just drawing the lines through that I'll stitch. I'm expecting the vehicle to come to the workshop in the next 3 or 4 days. Apparently Shane and Ernie have been having takeaway every night for the last 3 weeks. They've been burning the midnight oil, so it's a huge effort by all to meet the deadline for the job.
We're working 7 days a week, almost 24/7 on the car at the moment. We're a month into the build and we've done 371 hours between my wife and I. Yeah, the car was supposed to be at Chris's yesterday, and Chris is sort of worried with time because it takes a lot of work to do a full interior in a car. And I understand Chris wants the car there as soon as possible. Chris has had the seats in trim for a few weeks now, and he's completed the seats, and they look absolutely fantastic. And unfortunately, the delay for him is me at the moment. So we're working hard as we can to get the car done and ready for him, so at least Chris will be a happy fella.
Yeah, so the car's finally turned up. It's probably about a week later than I thought it was going to be. Shane and Ernie are putting a bit of pressure on themselves with how much they're undertaking, trying to show as many of their talents off as they can. Before the car got here, I'd finished rebuilding the seat. As soon as it arrived, I've made up and installed the headlining, including a bit of soundproofing behind it, stop the roof from drumming too much. And I'm onto the side trims, which I've got the door trims all ready, installed in the vehicle. The next step after I finish off the side trims and the parcel shelf, I'll be looking at doing the carpet and underfelt. Bottom half of the front seat I've got bolted in because the carpet's got to be actually tailored around the mounts so you don't see them. But once the side trims are screwed onto the seat, that's all covered up anyway. It just makes for a neater job. Yes, I'm really happy with the way the interior is coming together. The chrome piping sets off the accent lines through the side trims nicely and ties it in with the seats. I can see I'll be burning the midnight oil this week, quite a few nights, to get the job finished. It's Tuesday afternoon and Shane would like to come pick the car up on Saturday morning. So other than the back seat, I'll have everything else finished by Friday night.
So we've cleaned up the back window, cleaned all the old sealer off it, 50 years worth of debris, any dirt that's on there, we've cleaned all that off, put the new rubber seal around it, put it in the hole, sealed it up. We're just in the process of putting the chrome work back on now. Yeah, in the old cars, nothing fits. There's no guarantee that it's going to fit correctly straight away. You've got to make the window fit. The newer cars, it's more of glue the window in, it fits straight away. The older cars, you've got to make it fit into a rubber seal. So there's a little bit of cursing and swearing going on, trying to get it in sometimes, and probably 2 or 3 attempts to get the window in the hole. The front windscreen was supplied, a brand new windscreen was put in there. That's for roadworthy issues, stuff like that. So it's better off to put a brand new windscreen in than put the old one back in, because roadworthy laws state that it's got to be a clean, clear windscreen that's got to go back into it. Windows are in now, all complete, so back over to Shane to put the rest of the car back together, and yeah, should be on the road pretty soon.
After the break, Spiro calls in a favour and receives Heltec's new prototype ECU.
Heltec is a company that's been around for about 35 years now, and they were the first company in the world to make real-time programmable engine management. What that means is we make the computers that run the engines and the dashboards in the car.
You know, Heltec had produced the new Elite ECU for the Ford, which is a specific plug-in version of it, and I had spoken to them and I said, look, I'm building this car, is there any chance that we can maybe help with some R&D on the ECU? And they needed to test it, so we were fortunate enough to be given one from Heltec.
Once somebody builds the engine in their car, they'll put a Heltec engine management system in so you can adjust your fueling, all your ignition control, your cam control, how the electronic throttle works. So with that power of tuning over the engine, you can get the most out of it after your workshop has done modifications to the engine. So they might have built it up with crank rods, pistons, changed the compression, put different fuel in it or a different turbocharger. So without being able to program the engine management system, you can't get the most out of that setup.
I've been doing a fair few Heltecs here. We're not probably one of the biggest dealers. We primarily tune a lot of factory ECUs here, but our preference of choice is Heltec when we do aftermarket ECUs or when the customers are getting past that point of no return, if you want to call it. When they get really serious, they get into they're taking that car to the next level. Yeah, we definitely go Heltec systems.
This one is a prototype, so it's one of the first systems that we did as a direct plug-in ECU for the BA, BF and FG series of Falcons. So primarily these things have been flash tuned since about 2003 or 2004. And then they've finally got to a time now where pretty much every single one of these things that is built, sort of 500 kilowatts at the wheels or 700 horsepower is kind of the lower level now. So now Heltec has sort of decided to make a direct plug-in replacement. So we unplug the factory computer, we plug our one straight in. It controls the automatic transmission, it controls the normal sort of a manual gearbox, it'll do all of the engine, so all of the engine control, as well as all the dash and aircon and climate control and cruise control and all that sort of stuff as well.
Which is going to be very beneficial to a lot of people running the Barra motor, because it'll be a plug-in play. We get a lot of customers that want us to build Barra motors and put into any kind of car.
This one, being the Ford plug-in, is primarily a street market, but is also, these cars are moving into the sort of a racing series now. So I expect these to be quite popular in that sort of area. So when Autotech are at the track with this car, they would have already tuned it on the dyno. We'll plug an ECU in, we get the thing up and running. Then Spiro at Autotech will put it on the dyno. He'll tune the fueling, the ignition timing, the boost pressure, and depending if this thing's got electronically variable cam gears inside it, we'll also adjust them. We'll make the most power you can on the dyno, and then when the guy hits the track, Spiro will be there to be adjusting the two-step rev limiter so the thing launches and takes off at the right RPM and the right boost pressure. And then he'll also be looking at all the data logging in the ECU to make sure that as the car's going down the track, that the incrementals or across each section of the racetrack, that it's making the most power that it can, and it's as safe as possible as well. Inside the Heltec, we can also set up an engine protection function. So what that means is that Spiro can set it up so that if the coolant temperature goes over a predetermined limit, the engine will go into a limp mode. So the throttle will go limp, It'll make the fuel nice and rich and pull timing out. So to save the engine, you can come back into the pits, see what's gone wrong, inside the data logging, spiral, see, okay, the coolant temperature went too high, make mechanical changes to fix whatever problem that is, and then take the car out of limp mode and go out and race it again. So this is the way that you save engines.
We've put that ECU into it now, and now we've gotten this car and we're just putting it all together now and getting it ready to run. So we're hoping to achieve straight off the bat, you know, somewhere in the mid to low 9s.
When your car is due for its next scheduled oil change, some old oil may remain in your vehicle's engine, which is normal. What happens is the remaining old oil mixes with the new oil, making it look dirty. That is why it's important to use the Blue Chem Oil System Cleaner. This will lead to reduced fuel consumption, reduced oil consumption, reduced emissions and improved engine compression. Coming up, it's lights and sirens for Brendan and Sarah from HBW as the SES cuts the roof off the Commodore.
Sarah and I have been invited up to the SES training night. The second part of our HPW business is our wreckers, so we have access to a number of vehicles. We've chose to supply one to help them out for the night.
So tonight we're at Emerald SES, which is a fairly busy road accident rescue unit. So they will be doing a demonstration with someone trapped in a vehicle. So the unit will be called out to a road accident with possible persons trapped, along with other emergency services. But tonight they'll be showing us how to safely, but quickly, get someone who's trapped in a car out.
I suppose we want to showcase what it is from us getting to the gate, getting a gear on, getting a vehicle out the door, getting to a scene, assess the scene, and you know, if we can get the message out through a TV show of one less person having one less accident and the flow-on effects that has, it's all worthwhile.
So I guess we've all got high-performance cars, high-powered cars. So I guess tonight what we're promoting is taking them to an event or a racetrack where you can do it in a safe environment.
We've got 8 minutes to get a truck on the road, so you know, we've got some of our members that live around Emerald, but others live in outer communities. And yeah, they just literally is see a family out the door and not even goodbyes, it's get your keys. Middle of the night, it's find some clothes, whack them on, get out the door and get here as quick as you can.
Emerald Rescue 1, this is dispatch. Mark you en route to Foxtrot 0531. Details are 1 car versus tree.
2 occupants possibly trapped, over.
SES Dispatch, Emerald Rescue 1, received your last. ETA is 5 minutes, over.
All right, crew, come in. All right, confirming the situation we've got 2 people trapped in the car, both by their feet. Okay, this side, at this stage I want to remove both sides of the vehicle, get the paramedics in and assess the ankles, see what we're dealing with. Okay. Second plan is to continue on and do a roof bolt. All right, so let's work both sides of the vehicle. We've got enough tools here to take both sides of the vehicle off, okay? So everyone understood? Yep, gotcha. Thank you. We have this theory at a road crash rescue that, you know, we want the person out of the car, into the ambulance, possibly up here, most of the time it's probably into a helicopter, and in hospital within what they call the golden hour. So if we're 8 minutes getting the truck on the road, 8 minutes to get to the truck to an incident, that's quarter of an hour already. That doesn't leave us a lot of time as a rescue crew to, you know, work out what the hazards are, what the risks are to us, get the person out of the car, or persons, or cars, there might be multiple number of cars, and get them into the ambulance or air ambulance and get them to hospital. So it is really rush. But also it's got to be in a controlled manner. You can't be rushing and hurting ourselves and hurting our colleagues.
So Vic SES volunteers come from all walks of life. They can be people as doctors, nurses, lawyers, and we also have people that may have retired. They're also a very important part of our volunteer structure, especially if they're available during the day.
Front row. All right, ready to lift it up. I got this, lift it up. Lift it up. Where you pull. That way.
We have lots of other people, say, that may work from home so they can respond during the day, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So really there is a role for everyone as a Vic SES volunteer.
We really train the scenarios, like a theatre production, I suppose, when we do training, to work out, you know, where are the little things we can save time on and where are the little shortcuts we can make to get the job done quicker, to get the person from here up in Emerald, around Emerald, into the big hospitals in the city for a major collision.
It was very surreal, yeah, very confronting.
It's not an experience I think I ever want to go through. Definitely a horrible experience.
Yes, I felt like they communicated really well. They comforted us and felt really safe the whole time. So.
It felt like it was so fast-paced that no time at all, and they communicated each step of what they were doing, which in a situation like that, it's not easy.
My message would be to think twice. That's a pretty full-on experience to go through that. So.
I agree. I don't think anyone should ever have to endure something like that, and also the SES team who actually are on site helping you get out, that's really confronting for both parties.
So our volunteer units are always looking for new volunteers, especially if you think that maybe you can't give something back to the community but you want to. We have a role for everyone. It's not necessarily cutting someone out of a car or climbing safely up onto a roof to remove a tree. There is a job for everyone in SES, and we encourage, if this is something you'd like to do, please contact your closest SES unit for more information.
Next time on Rides Down Under Workshop Wars, Nathan Higgins lets slip his new secret development to take on the LS motor.
Even though I like the LS, we'll give them a run for their money, I reckon.
Superformance update us on the hot rod, and Horsepower Factory deal with the springs on the Stinger. If you think you've got what it takes to be part of Workshop Wars, contact us for our next season.